Motivation in motion. Own your moment and get better today.
You know, I'd had some real good high school coaches, Dean Choate, Brooks Mosier, Clay Davis. Wow. He hit me the hardest coming off of a sled one day, and
the stuff we can't do now.
We had to do a seat roll and get up, you know. Well, I come stumbling out of there, and I'm probably the worst player that Northwest ever claimed. But anyway, Brooks Mosier, he hit me, and I thought I was dead. I thought it was, but yeah, Coach Davis, he was a veteran of the Battle of the Bulge, so when it come to water, we didn't get a whole lot of sympathy.
Well, I'm going to stop because I want Todd to bring that out. That is a great story.
So why don't you start back this and introduce yourself?
Brad Fernberg, and live on the south side of Oklahoma City.
Okay, Coach Fernberg.
Coach, yes.
So this is the first time, Coach, that I have been asked by a former player of yours to call you to get you here.
Well, that's scary then. That's.
But it wasn't because of coaching. It was because of the impact you made in his life.
Oh, well.
Now, this guy went on to be multiple-time All-American and have quite a career, but he didn't talk about that. He talked about the influence that you made on him as a junior high coach.
Well, there you go. You know, just to kind of get started right there, I think if anybody has a desire to go into the coaching profession, they need to get started in junior high.
Okay.
That's the perfect place. And I say this why, because we all think at some point we know everything and we can just coach it all. But the first day I started out at 8th grade football, line coaching 8th grade football at Moore Central. And the very first day, this kid, we take one snap, and the quarterback comes out of there and his hands and fingers are all bent up and he's crying. And the center didn't know how to snap the football to where he put the laces up in there. So now, where you think you know, where you think you know everything, now you're on your hands and knees down there trying to get him to turn the laces up to where the quarterback can take a snap. This is in the old days where we didn't have the shotgun. You had to snap it. But I went in after that first practice thinking, you better start finding some stuff out, because we were talking about splits, we were talking about snaps, we were talking about what kids could play this and that, and so the junior high is just a perfect place. And I'll give you another great example, and that's Eddie Paul. Eddie Paul's a Hall of Fame coach.
I know who Eddie Paul is.
Eddie Paul is coached state track meet, state champion track team up at Woodward. He's coached DeSoto, Von Miller, down at just a Super Bowl champion. He's coached them. When South Ridge Junior High opened, Eddie Paul was the first coach. And it opened with the 7th grade.
I didn't know that.
This is only 8, 9, 10 years ago. And Eddie Paul's their very first coach. And we went to watch Eddie Paul coach the very first South Ridge game. And Eddie Paul has got this big old 7th grader, big old tall kid. And he comes up to him and says, "Coach," he says, "I think I need to take a break. I'm kind of tired." And I thought we was going to lose all of Coach Paul at that moment. But you know what? And then at the very same time, he's tucking this little kid about that tall, he's tucking his jersey down in his pants and telling him, "Get out there, you're ready to go." And so that's the thing that you just got to love about coaching. It's those kids. And who they bring and what they bring each day. And this young man that you're talking about, I'll give you 2 examples. One, this one young man we had, Todd Stapleton. You'd walk up to Todd and say, "Todd, this is what we need you to do." You go do it. And Todd would do everything he could to do it. But you get with Greg, and if you weren't chewing Greg out every minute, he thought you was mad at him. He thought you was just mad at him.
If you weren't,
if you got quiet around Greg, he said, "Oh, Coach, what's wrong? What's the matter?" But if you're chewing him out, he was good to go.
Wow.
And he'd bust his tail to do anything he could for you. And those were the kind of kids. Coach talked about the different people we had good talents and but just good kids.
I've been going at my contract negotiations all wrong with him.
Yeah.
I should go in and start chewing him out.
Oh yeah, just get.
And
after
you think
it.
it's
Yeah.
gonna? I'm scared of wrestlers. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he's a little older than I am. I feel like I'm in pretty good
Yeah,
shape.
you need to be worried about this.
But I'm a little concerned.
There's another young man that we'll bring up, and that's
Okay.
Marshall Ray. He was one of Coach's favorites.
Okay.
But him and Greg are big wrestlers. And
Okay.
I think we've got a challenge match coming here in the.
Is that
in
we're
the
going to have like
future.
a
Yeah.
seniors
I think so.
WWE?
It may not last
it's,
long.
It's
but
coming out.
Get there early because it may not last long. Yeah.
But the first 30 seconds could be.
It could be a good one. Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. I was just telling him what we were doing and about Faye and 17 Ministries and what John and I were just kind of like, okay, how do we get this going? And, the first name that pops into his mind is yours. So what was it? So what happened there? Like, what were some of those events? Was it just the total impact? I mean, this guy's played in college. He's had a lot of coaches.
I think the one thing is get them early, and known him and Todd and Wes McCaleb and those kids probably since the 7th grade.
Wow.
And got to be with them all the way through the 12th grade. And I think that one of the other things that coaches really need to understand today is what kids are coming from, their background. And it's only been here recently that I've understood about some of the kids and things that they were going through at home. Not everybody's coming from that two-parent household that's been blessed by God. And those are the kids that you've really got to work with and get a hold of. And they'll respond to you. Oh, they'll do whatever you need them to do. And these kids were just great that way.
Well, so obviously you were yelling at this guy. Okay, so what was your style? What was your style as a coach? How did you coach?
To be honest with you, I've had, coaching is so much like the Bible. God gives us scripture, verse, and example every second of the day.
I agree.
He gives us all of that. And I think that one of the greatest things is for us to do is to pay attention to who's crossing our paths. And I was blessed. I had Smoke Holland. He was the first coach I worked under. And then I worked under Cecil McCoy.
Okay.
And Smoke was a Korean War veteran. Cecil was a Vietnam War veteran. And they had a different way about doing things. But by golly, you paid attention to how they did things.
Yeah.
And I think if any young coach is really wanting to get in it and go a long ways, start paying attention to who's crossing your path. And those coaches that know how things are supposed to be done. Coach Goldsby, he talks about organization, or he talked about player relationship. But a young coach, like I say, I didn't know how to coach the center to get the laces up to where the quarterback's not coming out of there maimed. And so that was kind of a big deal. Now I'm going to tell you about that team also.
Okay.
That first 8th grade team, we played 10 ball games that year, and we went 1-9. We beat Ada the last game of the season. Ada, and I'll never forget, Mark McMinn was our quarterback. This is 50 years ago. But Mark McMinn, we've got him down about 6 points because you couldn't kick an extra point back then. And
not in junior high for sure.
And we are 0-9, and there's about 2 minutes left in the game, and McMinn's playing defense, and his mother is a counselor, his daddy is a preacher. I mean, this is just, he's got every foundation to be a great kid, and he hauls off and elbows the Ada quarterback in the head on the way back to the huddle. 15 yards, they got first and goal about the 10, and we hadn't stopped the wind yet, let alone the team. And somehow we got the quarterback down, and the clock runs out, and we finished 1-9 that year. God teaches you humility. Every chance, humility is where. Now, we could have gone 10-0 that first year, but no, we went 0-9. I mean, we had little league coaches coming up to practice to say, have y'all trying this? Y'all doing that?
That's always my favorite. When you're on a staff where it's struggling, the advice that comes out of you're like, you know what? We should have thought of that. Yeah, we've had plenty of meetings around this topic, right?
You betcha. And so, getting around those people that really know what they're doing and how they're doing it. Coach Goldsby, golly, he coached with Coach Jensen and he coached with Coach McBroom.
Yep.
And then he comes in there. Now, I want to tell you about Coach Goldsby.
Okay.
The thing you need to realize that Coach Goldsby preached that love, and he practiced that I love you, I love you,
okay.
and all of that until it came time for punt return practice.
Okay. I got to hear
And
this.
if one of the and he had this tower, kind of the band tower was out there on the field.
Yeah.
And he'd go up about 3. And he learned early not to go too high up on it.
Okay.
Because if you fumbled, he was coming off that tower.
Okay.
He had no patience.
Only on punt return.
Only on punt return. And he came off that tower with a vengeance.
Wow.
But he learned not to go up too many steps because he had it measured. But yeah, that was his one deal.
It's funny. I've been on several staffs with just great men, but it's funny you bring that up because one of the guys that I was on staff with, his obsession is punt team. Like he's an administrative type coach, great man, lets us do whatever. It comes to punt team, he's coaching 11 people.
That's right.
And I'm like, it's punt, and I'm an offensive coach. I hope we don't punt very much. I'm thinking we're spending way too much time on this. But it's interesting when they get something in it. It's probably someone probably dropped him a punt that cost him a game, and he just carried that axe for 40 years, right?
But somewhere down the line, somebody's got on somebody. There's always a reason. As Mr. Pryor always said, there's always a reason.
There's always a reason. I want to talk about this too, because the humility of what you sent over. Obviously, you sent your favorite scripture and you sent some stuff over, but you stayed at one place. Talk about that.
I had first off, after we went 1-9 and saw that we were going to get to stay,
that you got to keep your job,
right? And then that first year, I coached girls basketball too.
Okay.
And that was back when we were 6-on-6.
Okay, yeah.
And so don't look at us like we're back from the cave days, but we had an opportunity to stay, and it became home. And
I just don't see it. We've had so many great conversations here, and it's the first time the start and the finish is the same place.
And I'll be honest with you, I had one opportunity, and Coach Goldsby was the head coach, and Pat Ragsdale and I, they had 2 openings down at Lindsay.
Okay.
And that was back in Lindsay's great day. Coach Haley had just retired and or gone to Rush Springs, and then Hody Estes was the new head coach. And we went down there and we interviewed, and he took us. And in Lindsay, they've got every graduate of Lindsay High School, they've got their picture on the wall. And we looked at every graduate, and we got the full dose of leopard blood. But anyway, he takes one look and he says, "Now, Mr. Ragsdale, I think you can coach the ends, and you look like an end, and I think you'll work great." He says, "And I'm going to coach the offensive line here. That only leads to running backs." And he looks at me and he goes, "You don't look like a running back." And so I said, "Thank you, Coach." So I drove Ragsdale down there to get him a job, and then I came home.
And then you came back.
And so that's the only time I ever thought about leaving Moore. And
Really?
Coacher, he said, at that point, he says, "You need to really think about what you're doing." And I was sure glad he said that.
Wow.
But then we got to stay 41 years.
41 years.
41 years, and so it was a great opportunity.
Of all the unique things that I've gotten to experience this summer, that's got to be one of the greatest, I got to tell you.
Well,
because I think so often we see doors or we want opportunities, and it's probably a spiritual gift of yours just to show up every day and do what God's called you to do. And it probably didn't look for any other opportunity, right?
Right, and really didn't think that there was anything better. It was had every kind of equipment we needed. This community was passing bond issues, and they were so supportive and had great kids. Gee, they do anything you asked for them and asked of them, and it was really a special place.
Talk about that a little bit. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that was we release this stuff. I am so tired of people saying kids have changed. I think the noise around them's changed, and we had a coach share that, and that's a different perspective that I've never thought about. But I thought about it. I'm treating kids the way that I got treated by great men and women that coached me 30 years ago.
And they're responding.
100%.
Right. And Coach Goldsby was very much about positive coaching.
Okay.
And we've all been around coaches in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and boy, it's disciplined, and this is how we're going to do it. But, you know, Coach brought in a way of saying, you know, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. And now your job is to go do it. And there wasn't a bunch of berating, and there wasn't a bunch of, no, we get after them. Oh, yeah, there wasn't. But again, it was all about you doing the job and you performing.
Well, it's interesting. That there's a thin line, and I know your faith. I'd love for you to talk about this. How do you keep your intensity to coaching without making it a personal attack? And I think that's what young coaches mess up, right? It becomes personal, right, about their agenda. But you can coach kids intensely. Right.
And I think, again, it's as long as you're coaching them, nobody wants to be attacked. Nobody wants to be told how bad they are. And I think, again, it's that the ability, that's the coach's, you know, the good and the bad, they still coach. And, you know, Coach, what was the coach at LSU, Orgeon?
Oh, yeah. Coach O,
you know, he'd get right in the middle of their mess, and he'd just get after it. But he'd also tell them, that, you know, this is your job and this is what you need to do. And I think that's the thing that, you know, and praise the Lord Jesus Christ. He's never told us to get away from him.
Yeah.
He's never told us that you're done, get away, you're through.
Yeah.
And God tells us he'll always be with us. And in doing that, he never says, thank the Lord, he's a God of new starts. How many new starts do we get every day? Every hour even. And we got to praise him for that. And I think that's something that we forget about with kids is that, you know, everybody wants to do good. New York Yankees want to win, but it ain't happening right now.
Right.
And so,
you know, one of my favorite ones, and this is just kind of a simple example, being a former receiver and then coaching offense. I mean, I've coached every position, I think, but D-line, I think, is what I was telling someone the other day. I've pretty much done everything. You know, you get on a staff, you end up having to fit roles. I cannot stand it when a staff starts yelling at a kid for dropping a ball. Does he think that they don't know that the kid dropped the ball? Like, you don't think that's if you ever played that position, the first thing when it hits the ground that's in my brain is, I dropped the ball.
Right.
Everyone knows it. And I got a chance to be on a staff, and we just created a policy, and it was on Norman North in 2012. And I was asked to take a demotion. First time in my life, you know, you want to work up the ladder. And Wade Stanley at the time had asked me to come be just a position coach. And I was a coordinator at a school. And it was a month before the season, and I felt like that team was in great shape and had a lot of loyalty to that team. So I was like, they're going to do fine without me. They can figure this out. They had great talent. And so anybody could call plays on that team and be good. And I'm like, I'll go down here. And the humility around just coaching a position again, and now here it is a decade later, and I've not wanted to be a coordinator since. Just to coach a craft and to be on it and play a different impact now on teams. And one of them is every time I step foot on a campus, I say, can we just not yell at a kid for dropping the ball?
There you go.
Let's talk about his stance, his route. What we both know, if we've coached, there's 100 things that went wrong that we could coach. I don't have to go, gosh darn it, and say a whole bunch of other adjectives.
Right.
Catch the ball. That's the one thing he remembered as he's coming back to the huddle.
That's exactly right. And the other part of it is every one of us wants another chance. Just give me another chance.
It's a great lesson. It's a great lesson.
And I think that when kids realize, go over and stand over and think about it a little bit, but then we're going to come back here and we're going to give it another shot. And I think that you learn those things from seeing experienced coaches.
Yeah.
They know those things. And, you know, coaching, it goes beyond a field. When my dad died, Coach Holland was with me at Baptist Hospital down there in the morgue with my dad. My mother had been in Baptist Hospital in intensive care for, a month, 2 months. And I look up one Sunday evening and Coach Goldsby's up there with her.
Wow.
And so those are things, when you talk about being richer beyond money,
Yeah.
those are things that just, there's no amount of value that you can put on them.
It's an interesting ministry of coaching, right, if I could call it that, because of the legacy that gets left that you don't realize, right? Mm-hmm. You coached a young man, now runs an organization with 412 employees.
Right. Well, that's...
he tells me that you put him on a path of doing the right thing.
Well, he did a lot more of it than I did. He's a very special person, and I really think that when he makes his mind up to do something, and another thing that really has helped me to come see more about him is he shared his story of his youth and some things, and I think that that really makes you understand more about it.
Makes as we get older, we start reflecting for sure.
But again, and he had great parents, parents. I had great parents. I mean, they did everything in the world and that they could for me, and they made sure that I had every opportunity to be saved, and Jesus saved me when I was 10 years old.
I saw that. You want to tell me? I mean, 10. That's a big decision at 10.
That's another thing. If I seem to be speaking a lot about military today, the preacher at Baptist Temple over at 30th and Villa, he was a Marine veteran who had served at Iwo Jima.
Okay.
And at Northwest, we had a baseball coach, Winston Havenstrite, and he had served at Iwo Jima. He was a Marine. And they knew a right way to do things. But there was this lady, and her name was Eula Millspaw.
Okay.
And they were from Clinton, Oklahoma, and her husband was named Orville and Eula.
Okay.
But anyway, Eula got it in her mind that Brad was going to be saved. And she kept on me, and she started in about, well, when are you going down front?
Wow.
Well, when are you being baptized? Well, when are you? And it's just God saying, it's time. And so that's the story of my salvation is through Jesus Christ and Eula Millspaw.
Man, it's the nudge from that. Now, I got to hear, as you came in and you were talking about it, you end up playing college football.
No, I didn't.
You just end up at East Central.
East Central, yes, sir.
Okay. So you're at the time when East Central was really good.
They were. I was on a Hobart fellowship at East Central.
Okay.
And that's the name of the dish machine that you worked.
Dish machine.
So I was on a Hobart fellowship.
I love that. Oh my.
Yeah. The first night I was at the second night I was at East Central, they had this pot. It was about this big and it cemented in the floor. And anyway, my job that night was to go wash that pot, and they'd been cooking beans in it.
Okay.
And anyway, we got through with that, and I went home. And back then, it was a big deal to make a long-distance call. It was, and with my dad, it was especially, you better be having blood, or if you called him long distance. Well, anyway, I called and I said, hey, you want to know what a college life is? I just washed this pot that it had its own water fountain. It's cemented in the floor. And he said, don't you make Miss Taft mad now. She's a good customer. And so I hung up and went on back to
Wow.
That's how I went to East.
So from the scholarship of the Hobart, right?
Hobart Fellowship.
The Hobart Fellowship to 41 years of ministering to the youth of Moore. This is perfect.
Yeah.
If there was anything, if I could just give you an opportunity to either thank your family or the coaches you've been around, what would you say?
And coaching was part of this, and Smoke Holland and all the. When I got married with DENA, and I've got a great wife and great daughter and 2 grandkids and a great son-in-law, but family is the most important thing that there is. And if you're able to incorporate your coaching with your family, how many times John Odell, I'm sure he went to practice with his dad.
Yeah, we've talked about
times,
it. Yeah.
And to incorporate the family and the coaching together, but not to neglect it. You can't neglect the family and the coaching. It's they've got to both have to have that attention. And I think again with young coaches, seeing how those experienced coaches have gotten there and know what they're doing is it's time for you to take notice of what they do.
Man, that's awful special. Well, I don't know how long I'll get privileged to do this, but I have a feeling I might not meet another person that spent 41 years at the same place coaching and teaching.
Yeah, it's a great place to be, but you know, everybody has their time, and mine's passed. And
That's okay.
You know,
But you know, those memories and what you've done hasn't passed.
No,
and that's going on, right?
Right.
These are the men that are my age, and then their kids, right? Because of the influence you had.
You betcha. And again, it's so important to be the people that you're around, because the business is people. It is people, and to have been around the coaches that we've experienced, and to be around the teachers, Moore is just a very special place.
Wow. Well, I can't tell you. I was so blessed by your time. Thank you so much, Coach.
Well, you're very
I appreciate you.
I think you're the first people to listen to me.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true at all.